faceoff. Shoots it, deflected, right in. Pietrangelo save, rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tendy Talk. I am your host Joe, better known as Washed Up Goalie on social media. This week I talked to the man behind the Vintage Goalie Brand, Matt. But before I talk to Matt, let's take a short break. Matt, thanks for joining me and being on the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Joe. How are you doing?
I am doing well. We're recording on a Friday, and here in Minnesota, we're having a little bit of an Indian summer, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, same here. It's crazy weather. It's for November. I mean, this is bizarre, but we'll take it for sure.
Yeah, it's a great weekend to get the Christmas lights up.
Yes, actually, you're right. Yeah,
yes.
we'll be doing a bit of maybe not the lights, but we'll be getting the boards finished and getting the tarp down and all that good stuff. So
yeah, our neighborhood Facebook group, somebody said on there, it's 2020. Let's just put the lights up this weekend and turn them on. Because it's just something about them just calms everybody. In a normal year, wait till Thanksgiving, but this year, turn them on.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. I'm a big Christmas guy, and
yep,
and yeah, I've been hearing that. You know what? Let's just get the good vibes going.
Yeah, we've been doing that as well in our house, where I work from for the home office. I've got the nativity scene behind me, and I'm still fairly new in my current role, and one of my coworkers goes, do you always have the nativity scene behind you, or have you already started decorating? And I started laughing.
I think it's great. Don't take it down. Keep that going.
No,
that's great.
Absolutely. So, I want to get started and ask, how did you get started in hockey? When I look on the website, your parents didn't skate. It's not the typical story of, the older brother or dad. So how did you get started in the game of hockey?
Sure.
Other than being a Canadian?
Yeah, for sure. You're right. I didn't take the normal path that most Canadian kids take. But, for me, I grew up in a home where hockey wasn't big. We had one television in the house, and hockey was not going to be watched. So I had a childhood friend who lived down the road, and he came from a hockey family, and he played hockey. He played organized hockey. His dad played in the men's league. So hockey was always going on in their home. And so you probably remember the satellite dishes back in the 90s. Yep. So his dad used to record all of the Oilers games because he was a Gretzky fan. So Saturday mornings, I used to go to his house. We'd go down to the basement and we'd watch recorded games of Gretzky and Fuhr and the Oilers. And then when Gretzky got traded to LA, it was the same thing. Like we watched all that in his basement, and so because he was from a hockey family, he went to all his hockey games, and I always bugged to go with him. I loved to go. I'd be in the stands watching him play, and just to be in the in the arena and the smell, and I loved it. I loved it as a kid. So I guess I lived it through him because I didn't have that opportunity. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and that just wasn't a priority. And but one thing for sure, we played a ton of street hockey.
Yep.
That's for sure. Whether it was at our place or at his house, we played a lot of road hockey. So yeah. I guess that's where it started for me. I don't know how far you want me to go. There's quite a bit, but
how did you wind up as a goaltender then? Because most people, it's either dad played or the siblings threw you in net, or So how is it you wound up in goal on top of not coming from the traditional hockey household?
Yeah, I guess I just, every time we played, to me, there was something about being in the net and stopping the puck or the ball. That, to me, there was just this great moment of coming up as the hero, as the kid. And I just loved to be in that spot. And I can remember my earliest memory, I think going back to watching the pros, was again at my friend's house. And I remember watching, there was an Islanders game that had been recorded, and we were watching it. And it was Kelly Rudy with the Islanders. And I'll never forget, and this is going to sound funny, but I was born in the mid 70s. So I'm kind of an 80s kid, but I remember the first time Kelly lifted up that Jofa bucket and he had that amazing flow with the bandana.
Yes.
I'm telling you, man, I was sold. Like, that did it for me. And so I actually, anytime I played after that, I wore a bandana. And
Yeah.
I didn't have the great flow that Kelly had, but I definitely had the bandana. And again, you know, it was that whole persona, right? Like the equipment, the mask, and Kelly with the hair and the bandana. There was just like, as a young kid, like that was just the coolest thing. There was nothing cooler than that for me. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the bandana because that finals against Montreal, and he had that blue bandana sticking out the back, and you bet I had a blue bandana going after that.
Right on.
So
yeah, I think it was go ahead.
No, I was gonna just transition, but I think I know where you were going with that one.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people I've talked to that wore bandanas because of him. It's quite funny.
Yeah, it's the bandana because of him, and then so many of us had the batting glove or the golf glove because of guys like Eddie Belfour. We didn't know why the hell we were wearing it, but it was just like them.
Yeah. I can remember taking slap shots with we'd play in the rain, and I can remember getting like a tennis ball, a soaking wet tennis ball, getting those in the thighs and in the legs and in the stomach. Like, I didn't wear much stuff. We had a street mask with a baseball glove, and that was basically it.
Yeah, those old plastic Milek pads were
fond memories.
How we didn't break our toes wearing those things. It was, the good old days. You knew you were a goalie by the bruises.
That's right. Absolutely.
So you started playing road hockey like most kids, you know, the Wayne's World route. When did you start playing ice hockey?
So that wasn't until much later. So as a kid, as I grew older, I kind of fought to get, you know, ownership of the TV. You know, we had a bunch of siblings. There was 4 of us in the house. And so I started to watch a lot more hockey, obviously, as I grew older. And you know, it wasn't until the late 90s when I moved to Ottawa that I played ice hockey for an actual organized game for the first time.
How old were you?
Sorry, I was in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s. And I tell you, it was awesome. I remember there was a night, it sort of started that night. I got in the car. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was what year was it? Anyways, I think it was a 96 Golf or Rabbit, whatever it was. And I went out, and I noticed in the city of Ottawa here, because in Hamilton, I just got to say, there wasn't a lot of outdoor rinks because the temperature didn't stay, you know, cold enough for there to be a lot of outdoor rinks. We had one arena. It was called the Hamilton Arena. And that's where we went, like, on class trips. We'd go skating there, and that's where all the hockey.
Watch the Mustangs.
Yeah. That's where all the hockey was played in Hamilton. And so anyway, so when I moved to Ottawa, I remember going out one night. It was a winter night. I'm driving around in the car and just kind of getting to know the city. And I noticed there's all these, you know, at the outdoor, like the ballpark, the ball diamonds, there's all these lights on at night. I'm like, what's going on? Well, it turns out there's all this outdoor hockey going on.
Yep.
Well, I was dying. Like, it was the coolest thing ever. And I don't know if it was the next day, but it was pretty close. I put an ad in Classified looking for used goalie equipment. And really, really quick, within a day or two, I get a phone call from this elderly woman who responded to my ad. She's like, come to my house. She's like, you can have all of my son's gear. And it was a garbage bag full. And it was a DR blocker, a brown blocker, which I still have today. There was a GM 21 Cooper I still have today. Old Cooper pads, a player helmet. So I did the combo. I wore that. And so I just ended up going from rink to rink and just playing outside. That's where it started for me. And then it went crazy. After that, I wasn't married at this time. So after that, it was, I was playing 3-4 nights a week. I was playing a ton, and I was living out, I guess you could say, I was living out my childhood dream, just something I couldn't do as a kid, and now I was doing it.
Yeah.
And still today, like, it's been a while since I've played because of COVID, but still today, man, like yourself and many others, I get out on the rink and I'm just a big kid out there. I just love it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that's what I love about the game is once you hit that ice, it just brings you back to a time of innocence,
Yeah.
pre-cell phones, pre-social media. It's just like, this
Oh,
is where it's at, especially when you're outdoors and it starts snowing.
oh, dude, that for me, like playing outside under the lights with a bunch of guys, late
Yep.
night shinny, that to me is gold.
Yeah. In fact, the shirt I'm wearing right now is from the playground puck tournament I played in here in St. Paul
Oh,
last January, where it was just an outdoor rink.
awesome.
The guys that are doing the For the Love of Puck documentary put it on, and
Oh,
it was just that's the whole idea. It's just a bunch of people getting together that love the game. And
well, you live in a great part of the world there, because Minnesota's, I mean, it's tons and tons and tons of hockey, a lot of
yep,
passionate hockey fans there.
absolutely. You know, if it's not a frozen pond, it's a frozen rink in somebody's backyard, or like the
Yep.
Groveland park that this tournament was at. They have two rinks set up in the middle of the park with boards and chain link fence behind the nets. Then they
Yep.
have a skating oval all the way around these two rinks, and like an open skate area to the side of that, in a little area they call the pond for pond hockey. And they have a Zamboni that goes out every hour and just cleans the whole thing.
Oh man, I'm visualizing that. I want to be there. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's all run by volunteers.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
special.
it's
That's special.
something else. So you got into it, into the position a little bit later in life, but
Yep.
you've made it a passion, and from what I've seen on social media, turned into a pretty good beer league goalie, which I think the definition of a good beer league goalie is one that shows up reliably. It doesn't matter how
Yes,
many pucks we stop.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
um, I think that's what my team loves most about me, is that I show up all the time, and if for some reason I can't, I find my own replacement.
Yeah, good for you. And you know, man, I've been following you for a while, and you've done a great job. And this podcast, I think I wanted to say it at the beginning. Congrats, to you. Kudos. Well done. You're the right guy for it. And I just want to say I'm happy for you.
I appreciate that. I got to give my wife the kudos for giving me the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
Something I've been thinking about for a while, and all of a sudden she just kind of gave me the kick in the backside and said, just do it already.
Yeah.
um,
That's great.
So through social media, I've learned that you're a graphic designer by trade.
That's right.
When did you start to get that artistic bug? Because I think a lot of us that are artistic get it young. I know I did, because my grandfather, who I never met, he was an old school graphic artist, in the
Oh,
day of pens and pencils and drafting boards. So
did you inherit any of his old drafting tools?
yeah, I have his, I don't know if they were, yeah, it was his compass set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love that stuff.
And he actually had a deal with the Chicago Tribune. He was going to have a Sunday comic.
Oh,
And he found out a week later that he had terminal cancer. So it never ran in the paper, but we have one of the surviving strips, nice big artboard. So
that's
that's actually
special.
kind of cool. It was about his time in the war.
Oh, that is special.
Yeah.
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 So how did you get the bug for art?
Well, that's something I had since I was little. Honestly, I wasn't your scholastic kid. Like I loved to draw when I was little, and I can remember like my mom, because apparently my grandfather, I didn't know him very well, but he was a painter, and so my mom grew up watching him, and so she thinks I got a bit of his skills. But she used to really encourage me, to go with it. And I can remember going into little competitions at grade school, and I was all about drawing realism. I love to
Hmm.
draw like birds and turtles and just creatures,
Yeah.
but all high realism. I loved it, and really, it was really the only thing I was good at. Like I go through all of grade school and high school, and yeah, I did well enough to get by. I really did, and it was fine. But when it came to drawing, that was for me sort of an escape, I guess. And
Hmm.
I love to create, and that hasn't gone away. So I've been drawing since I was a kid. I still have old sketch pads, and then what happened was probably it was mid '90s. I knew for sure I wanted to pursue a passion a career in design. So I went to Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario, and I was there for almost 5 years, and it was a tough program. Like they try to almost weed out, those who really aren't
Yep.
committed, and so I was pretty into that and hardcore, and so I stuck through it, and I'm glad I did, and I came out of there, and I got some great jobs coming out of there, and now I do freelance. I've been doing freelance design, graphic design, just about any kind of design for, I don't know, close to 30 years now, I guess.
That's amazing. I know quite a few freelance artists, and the good ones, they can make a decent living off of it because
Yep.
they're good.
Yeah,
A, they can charge the prices they charge because they're good, but B, because they're good, they keep getting the business.
that's right. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
So at what point did you decide?
So I kind of put the two together. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at what point did you put the two together of hockey and the design and,
Sure.
go that route? I mean, I'm guessing when the Vintage Goalie brand came about.
Yeah, it was funny. I was, I think I may have it up on my website, but I was sitting in the kitchen. It was around a year ago, or sorry, I don't know how long it's been now. It was 2014, so 6 years ago this December, and I was just sitting in the kitchen.
A year ago, that's goalie math.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was. I was just sitting there at the kitchen sketching one night, and I thought, I've been doing logos for a lot of other companies and brands for a long time. It's time to do one for myself, but during that time, I had also been just taking random photos of my gear, because I'm like you and probably like a lot of goalies, we don't get rid of our stuff, right?
Right.
We keep everything. We'll find a hiding place to stash our stuff, and
yep.
So I've never let anything go, and so I started taking pictures of stuff, and then I thought, I got all these photos. Why don't I make a Facebook page, and for anybody that wants to scroll through them? So the Facebook page was called The Vintage Goalie, and it was just photos that I've taken of my gear, and around that same time, that was in December 2014, I thought, I'm going to do a logo. So I drew the flying mask. I wanted to draw something that I wouldn't have to change again, because I believe when it comes to branding, you've got to kind of stick with your brand and stick with your look, and don't confuse the audience, right?
The Chicago Bulls, same logo for their entire existence.
Right. So I drew that, and spent a couple $100 and had 30 shirts made, and gave them to friends and goalies and buddies of mine, and then it just sort of grew from there, I guess. I ended up doing this sort of online order where someone could, I had one shirt, I had a black shirt with a flying mask, and they could put an order in, and it was all very manual. And again, I thought nothing of it at the time. I was just selling it to anybody that wanted it, and it just sort of from there.
Yep. Yeah, and the logo is fantastic. It's got that, captures that essence of the old goalie with the mask and the wings. And if I'm being honest, that's the logo that had me start thinking, when I started my Instagram account, like, hey, what do I call myself? So I wanted to poke fun at myself a little bit. That's where the washed up goalie part came from. And it's like, I want a decent logo. So my son was working on a photography advancement for Cub Scouts, and came to one of my games and took some really blurry pictures. But I had a decent silhouette of my stance. So I just, in Illustrator, did what I could with it. And then I've always loved the Cooper font, and just threw it together. But it was kind of your logo that gave me the inspiration to come up with a brand of sorts, and go from there.
Cool. Well, it's a great brand. I was on your website the other day looking at your products, man. You've expanded, and it's going really well.
Yeah, it's for the products, that's simply using a threadless store where it's pretty much a drag and drop, and that they do the fulfillment.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just an opportunity to, if I can get a few bucks to pay for web hosting, that's my goal.
And you're having fun, right? Because that's what's most important.
Exactly. I even forget I have them out there sometimes. I think what's really cool about the brand Vintage Goalie is I've seen a number of goalies with it on, whether it be pro goalies, retired NHL goalies, I was at a local hamburger shop here in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and saw some guy with his vintage goalie hat on and just kind of gave him the nod, like, there you go, bud. You know, it's I think something that resonates with a lot of goalies.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I hear stories like that, it's crazy. I still think it's just nuts. In fact, I've actually never bumped into anyone wearing my stuff ever until it was last year. I was at a public pool in Ottawa, and there's a guy I saw wearing my shirt, and I went up, and it turns out he does local radio here in Ottawa, and I got talking with him, and it was a weird thing to see. So yeah, I'm really humbled by it. You know, when I started this, I never had an intention to turn it into something, and I still don't have like, I hear people sometimes ask me the question, you know, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? I don't have a plan. I'm just going along here and just having fun with it. And my goal all the time is, I guess what's most important for me is that, you know, there is so much rich content, so many great stories that are buried away in books, hockey cards, magazines. There's so much great content, and unfortunately a lot of that is disappearing, right? So it's always been my goal to sort of keep that at the surface, because we as the goalie union have such a rich history, and especially for the younger generation, to sort of, you know, let them know, expose to them what we were exposed to and what got us excited. And so I try to get that out there. And it's really neat too when I see young kids or you know, parents ordering stuff for their kids, and it blows my mind. It's super cool.
Yeah, and I think it's fun sometimes too, when us older goalies get on the ice with the younger goalie and they see the equipment, you know, we're still wearing it. I was at a skate last summer. I got there early, and there was a high school team getting on the ice that was short of goalies. So the coach kind of looked at me and goes, "You want some extra ice time and shots?" And I said, "Sure, but I'm not doing sprints at the end."
Right.
And we're standing mid-ice listening to the next drill, and the high school kid kind of looks behind me and he goes, "What's with all those straps?" You know, he wasn't used to it, but it was just kind of fun talking to him about equipment. He just thought it was the weirdest thing to see that kind of stuff. He's like, "I haven't seen anybody wear that."
Right.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking of it, on your Instagram page the other day, you had a picture of what we believe is a Northland bucket.
Yes.
And you put the cage on there, and as soon as I saw it, I smiled, because one of my recent guests was my college goalie coach, and he played high school hockey in Minnesota here in the 70s, and I don't know if you can see it very well.
I listened to a bit of that. Yes.
He had what looked
no
like
kidding. He's got a Northland. I never noticed that.
With the HM, what was it? The HM 50 cage on there.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I just did that for fun. I wanted to see if it fit. I'm always kind of tinkering to see what fits with what. So yeah, that's great. I'm going to go back and take a look at that, because not too often do you see that those the HM30 and the bucket together. That's cool.
Yeah. So I saw that. I'm like, that's exactly what Donnie wore.
That's great.
And I don't know if I would step on the ice with that. And I wore the Hasek helmet in college for a while.
the Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, God, I loved wearing that helmet for the, how light it was, and the mobility and the vision.
Yeah.
But the safety, no, I'm smart enough now never to go on the ice with people that can shoot with that again. You know,
isn't it funny though, when you look, I was just going to say, isn't it funny though, when you look back, because when I look back at what I used to wear too, I think, what was I thinking? Like I was wearing hardly anything. But you know what's funny? Just this past winter, so I guess it's coming up to a year ago, I got out of I was wearing a Bauer chest protector. It was the 1/100, Supreme 1/100. Mm-hmm. And it was big. It was huge. And I never wore anything big, like on upper body. And I always, for the longest time, always felt restricted. You know, it would always kind of push up and hit my dangler or my mask. It always kind of drove me crazy. And, you know, I finally got rid of it. And I went out and I went to Play It Again Sports here in Ottawa, and I bought, it was an iTech Profile 4.8 chest protector. I mean, there's hardly any protection on it, but that's what I used to wear years ago.
Yep.
And when I played, I guess it was beginning of this year, it was so good, because I could finally move again. And I guess I'm at the point where I'm willing to take a few stingers just to be able to move. And and to get my arms in tight again and sort of feel my equipment, I don't know. I've gone back to that. Less equipment for me is for a little better.
That makes so much sense to me, because I'm still wearing a 20-year-old Brian's Air Elite chest protector where it's close to the body. Like you said, it's not very high up on the shoulders, but the arms, I have great mobility with them. And even when I had that chest protector brand new in college, some of my teammates had some of the bigger, bulkier, because this was in the days of Garth Snow where his floaters came up past his ears. Right. And they were restricted in their mobility. They could bring their arms up, almost like John McCain trying to raise his arms. But to me, that didn't fit my game. And I liked that. But then again, my first chest protector was a 2-piece from the 70s. So, I think what I wear now is, pretty impressive.
Do you still have your 2-piece?
No, that was an association piece of equipment. I gladly gave that back after going to a pickup skate when I was still a squirt, and there was a high school kid took a slap shot and just hit right here on the shoulder, and that actually sent me to the doctor.
Really?
To see if something was damaged, and the doctor goes, "No, nothing's wrong. It's going to be sore for a while, but I don't want you wearing that piece of equipment anymore." So then my dad was just, and that was our first road trip to the north side of Chicago to the famous hockey shop Gunzo's for my first piece of equipment.
Oh, cool. Cool. I got a glove a long time ago with it's an old Cooper brown glove, and it's got the Gunzo stamp on it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about Gunzo's, and then I got reading about it and find out they're a retailer, and they got a long history.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing, for a while, they had Darren Pang's game worn pads sitting up there. And awesome. I mean, when I was going there as a squirt, I was wearing bigger pads than him already. And I was a short fella. And I think that's a good transition talking equipment is recently on Instagram, you shared the short version of how you got started at iTech. What's the longer version?
Oh man, it's really long, but I won't get into all of it, but at that time in my life, I had actually lost my job. I was in the high tech, not iTech. I was in the high tech industry doing drafting. That was coming out of college. That was one of my skill sets. And so I was doing drafting, and anyways, I lost my job. The company went under. It wasn't a good time for the high tech industry here in Ottawa. And anyway, so I was out of work. And every night in the room there, the spare room, my wife and I were newly married too. We'd only been married a couple of years, and I was raised pretty old school, like get food on the table, man. You got to get out there, get working. So
same here.
You too, eh? And so I had a few jobs sort of on the go, but my wife, she said, "Matt, you're you got to get back drawn again. You got to get back to what you loved creating." And so I really needed that boost. And you shared earlier about your wife getting you to do the podcast. We need them, don't we? We need our wives, man. They're awesome.
They know what's best for us.
Yeah, so good, so much wisdom. And she really encouraged me. And so I'd spend night after night on different job sites. And until one night I see this one that said goalie developer at iTech. Well, I fell off my chair, and because I'm reading the job description, I'm like, holy smoke! Can you imagine like having that as a job? And so, anyways, I applied, and my portfolio was I'm looking for, and if I find it, I'll post the pictures. I actually drew some pads and drew my own graphics and as part of my portfolio. And anyway, got the interview. I get into the building, and there was a crazy snowstorm leading up to that interview. In fact, the guy, the hiring manager, called me that morning from Quebec. So this is about an hour and a half down the road. Said, "Matt, don't come in for the interview. We've got this crazy storm, look out your window, don't come, it's not worth it." I said, "I will be there." I said, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So my wife and I got in her little Honda Civic, and the snow was so deep and not even plowed that morning. I think it was like hitting the bumper, on the way there. Anyways, I'm in my suit and my boots, and we get there. A couple of cars are in the ditch on the way there. Like, it was just this crazy drive, but I was not going to miss this opportunity.
Yep. And
I get in there, change into my dress shoes in the car, get in there, and there's no one in the building. He's there, the hiring manager, and some people from HR, but that was it. Everyone else, I think it was a snow day. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
And I get into the pro shop where they got like the Prodigies hanging on the wall, the X-Wings and all their masks, right? iTech, that was their thing, right? All their masks. And I am just like, I'm like at Disney World and I'm dying. So I sit down and have the interview. The interview goes really well. And anyways, I drive home. My wife's like, well, how'd it go? I said, well, I put my best foot forward and you know, it's up to God now and we're going to leave it in his hands. And so it was a couple of days later, I was back working at the time there and my phone rings. Actually, I had a flip phone and I'm sitting in the car and the phone rings and I called my wife back. I said, you're not going to believe this. I got it. So we pack our bags, we move to Quebec and just, I can remember my first day. They bring me into my new office. That's me and there's another guy. There's two guys in it. It's the goalie room. That's what we call it, the goalie room. And there's pads everywhere and masks everywhere. And they show me my desk. And I just, again, it's like pinched me, right? It was like a dream. And anyway, so I was there for, I guess it was 2.5 years. And then Nike Bauer came along and acquired them. And that was a hard day. I mean, I was excited and privileged, you know, fortunate to be one of only a small handful of guys that went on to work at Bauer. But it was a sad day because iTech was a real good brand. And
yeah, it was.
You know, growing up as a kid, I don't know what it was like in Minnesota, but when I was young, in you know, grade school, high school, like iTech was a family company. It just had a great reputation. And so it was a sad day, but anyways, I was told, listen, Bauer's going to be good for you. Bauer's got some great, got a great R&D facility up there in St. Jerome. And so I went up there and I got really into the masks actually, and less on the protective. So iTech, I did everything. There was a lot of, you know, chest, pant, mask, pads, block, catch. We kind of did a bit of everything because it was a small company. It was ma and pa. It was very small. So you wore lots of hats and then, but Bauer was more very R&D focused, which was really cool. So I got working in R&D specific on the masks. That's when I always want to say the Enemy 7, but it was the Envy 7 was their mask that came out. And anyway, and that, I believe that was a transition. It started at iTech and went to Bauer, but it was the mask. And so I started working there. And yeah, I was there for another couple of years. Again, mostly working in masks. I got to work with Dave Art, which was really cool. That's when I met Dave.
Yeah.
So Dave was doing all of iTech's designs.
Right.
And I can remember at iTech when I first got on the phone with Dave, I thought, I was like, again, pinch me. I'm talking to Dave Art here. How cool is this?
Yep.
And,
yeah, I remember he was at the NHL fan experience when it was in Minnesota, and I remember waiting in line for see the Stanley Cup with my nephew, and there he was before he was what he is today, and he was just sitting there working on a mask, and I was just sitting there, it's like, wow.
Such a great guy, like the most meek and mild, just a wonderful person. He's a great friend. And I also got to meet, because iTech, as you know, the 960, 961, that was their thing, and that was their Cadillac, and so they had Dave Art, and they also had Frank Cipra. I got to meet the legend Frank Cipra, another incredible individual, super talented. So yeah, a lot of great memories at iTech. Bauer was also great, wonderful people. I still have friends there today. I can't say enough about that organization, a wonderful group there, and they're making some pretty amazing products. So yeah, it's been it was great.
Yeah. Now, you got to work on some great things. I remember you showed the X-Wing blocker, and that line was one iTech line I wore. I wore it once because I was coaching high school hockey, and one of our goalies had it, and
cool.
He didn't show up for practice one day, and we're like, we need another goalie. So luckily we were about the same size, and I threw his stuff on, and it's the most modern set of equipment I've ever worn, still to this day. But I remember liking the pads. The glove took me a little bit of getting used to because I'm used to that giant Vaughn of mine. But I remember how comfortable that X-Wing blocker was. There was just something about it. It was like, wow, I really like this thing. And again, the graphic was pretty darn cool too.
Yeah. I never, when I came in there, the X-Wing was already out. It had already launched. The Prodigy was pretty much done. And when I got there, they were just sort of, I guess, midway through the RX-9 series. or the
Okay.
RX series, which had sort of that dragon tail going down the center.
Yeah.
So that was big at the time, and so I came in sort of halfway through, so I did some of the more cosmetic stuff for that line because a lot of that had already been developed. But yeah, some wonderful memories. Great place to be.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when we follow you on Instagram, we see you're working on your backyard rink right now. Is
Yeah.
somebody who is about to put his own backyard rink up for the first time. Now, the caveat is for the past few years, my neighbor's been putting it up
Okay.
and I've helped him. But I've recently leveled out a part of my lawn that is more level than his. So it's going in my yard this year.
Oh, great.
What kind of tips do you have for me as I look to make it a little bit bigger and better? You know, one of the things I want to do is what you've been working on is the taller boards behind the net. What tips do you have for me?
Sure. The biggest thing I learned, the biggest learning curve is finding a level ground. If you've got a level ground, the rest is butter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was 3 years ago, all I did is I took 2x4s and I put them up, like I laid them on the ground, put them up on their high side, so you're 4 inches high.
Yeah.
And then I put my tarp down. Well, I put my tarp down first, and I put my 2x4 on top, and that was it. And then I let the rain do the rest, and I filled it with a bit of water. I really only had 4 inches of ice, but that was enough for our kids and us. We had a lot of fun. So level ground is key. After that, if you got level ground, it's completely up to you how big you want that thing to be. And you know, at the end of the day, the larger it is, the more maintenance you got. But
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but to me, on a cold winter night, I'd rather be out there misting that rink
Mm-hmm.
35 below than being inside. I love to be out there. So
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're going to have a 30x60 rink. And I actually had a
wow,
landscaper out with a dingo, making sure it was nice and flat. And he's from up here, so I told him what we were doing. He goes, "All right, we'll make sure it's good."
that's a nice size. Good for you.
Yeah. And
That's
luckily,
great.
that's the supplies that the neighbor has as well as for a 30x60. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a labor of love. We have quite the hill in our backyard, so. For preparation, I had to build a 4-foot high, 68-foot long retaining wall to help cut into that slope. It's also why I've been on the IR for the last 3 weeks with the bad back.
You're back. Oh, well,
Um,
I'm hoping it was worth it, man, because I'm
yeah,
glad you did that. I'm glad you put the time in because you only
kids are
got to
going
do
to love
that
it.
once.
Yeah, and you know, my kids, they're 12 and 13. They
Okay.
neither of them play organized hockey. My son had the option, but here in Minnesota, there's no house league hockey. It's all travel hockey. And that
Okay.
at his age, it's 6 to 8 times a week.
Okay.
And
Wow.
he knows for him, that's too much.
That's a
But
lot. Yeah.
he still loves to skate on the pond and everything. So he'll
Oh.
probably be out on the backyard rink 7 days a week,
Yeah.
but it's on his terms and not,
Sure.
we have to be cross town in the middle of a snowstorm at this time
Right.
or stuff like that. So that's going to be really fun to just see the two of them out there together and becoming better skaters and playing the
Yeah.
game because they love it, not because I paid so much money for them to skate.
and they'll look back and they'll say, my dad, he went out there, he did that for us, he invested all that time and he froze his butt off, but and they may do that for their kids. It's a nice tradition if you can manage to do it with your kids. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, we were telling friends of ours we were putting the rink up this year, and their daughter's going to play high school hockey for the first time this year if they allow it in the school district. And they go, God, that's a lot of maintenance and work. We've done it years ago in the past with our older boy, and my wife looked at him and she goes, "Have you met Joe? Like this isn't for the kids. This is for him."
Right. There's some pride in that, eh? Getting that perfect ice.
Oh yeah. Well, and I worked at a rink in high school and in college. I've put in ice sheets on, larger rinks and painted the ice and everything else. And yeah,
Cool.
there's pride in getting that down. And I was a Zamboni driver in college, and you better bet every time I resurfaced that ice before I turned around and shut those doors, I took a look and just, yep, that's a good sheet right there.
Can I tell you, man, I am super jealous. You drove a Zamboni. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I went to a small Division III college in
Okay.
southeastern Minnesota, St. Mary's, and I worked our hockey camp every summer.
Okay.
And I think it was my second year yeah, my second year, the coach called me toward the end of the school year and he goes, I'd love you to work the camp again. He goes, but instead of being a counselor, the boys camp lasted 5 weeks and then there was 2 weeks of girls camp. He goes, we need a Zamboni driver for the
Awesome.
full
Sign me
7
up.
weeks.
Yeah.
He goes, it's just like every, you still get to skate all night, every night with the guys after the kids go to bed and everything. He goes, you just don't do the stuff with the campers. I was like, well, that's fine. He said, can I still work with the goalies over lunchtime then? He's like, yeah, that'll work.
Oh, wow.
So, I showed up about a week or two early. And what was really fun is we had an old Zamboni. He was like 40 years old, didn't have the edger brush. And it actually had rust holes about this big in certain spots.
Oh, wow.
But they kept that thing working, but we got a brand new, I think it was the first generation electric Zamboni. So the
Wow.
first day it came, of course, Denny, the guy that kept our ice, just beautiful. He got the first spin with the Newzamboni, and then he took me and the other driver out to teach us. He's like, this is how it works. And he just looked at us, he goes, don't mess it up. And there was no training with Denny. It was just, this is how it works. If you don't go too fast, you're not going to have any issues. It took a little getting used to.
Sure.
You'll appreciate this from the design standpoint. So if you look at the top of a Zamboni, there's those kind of ridges.
Yep.
Those are there on purpose. So when you come around, so as I come around and the clean ice is to my left here, I can look off the side and line it up. But when I come around the other corner and it's on this side of me, I lined the clean and dirty spot up with one of those ridges.
No way.
That was one of those things. It's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Now on the Olympias, I don't know what they do to line them up.
Okay.
When they're not starting on fire. But that's how they work on the Zambonis. And it was really fun. And Denny was very particular of who he allowed to drive the Zamboni. So when the school year started and, as a hockey player, I got to put in for where I wanted to work on campus and I put in for the ice rink. And then he goes, good, because you're one of the 2 student workers that are allowed to drive the Zamboni.
Very cool, man.
So it worked out really nice with hockey because the girls team always skated right after us. And the student worker needed to clean the ice. Mm-hmm. I was the student worker that was technically on the clock at that time of day.
Okay.
So as soon as the coach told us to line up on the goal line for sprints, I had to get off the ice to take off my pads and my skates and then sprint back to the Zamboni room and hop on the Zamboni with my chest protector still on, with my breezers still on. And
what a memory, man. That's great.
And clean the ice. So that was kind of fun.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. If there's one thing I'd love to do in terms of bucket list, it's drive a Zamboni.
Yeah, it's fun at first. After a while, it gets pretty repetitive, but I think most Zamboni drivers, every time you go around and you see a little kid, you're like, yeah, this is kind of cool.
That's cool. Man.
So when we got that new Zamboni, though, we all wanted to take it. Our school was up on a hill in the Bluffs. We wanted to take it down the hill and go through the McDonald's drive-through.
Oh, of course.
And I knew one of the sheriff's deputies in town, so I know we wouldn't have gotten in trouble. In fact, he probably would have given us the escort, but we weren't convinced that the Zamboni would make it back up the hill. So that was the only reason we didn't do it.
Right.
So back to the backyard rink. How long have you been building it?
Probably since the kids were little. I want to say, the rink is probably like the actual, like with the boards and everything, that's only 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And then before that, it's amazing. Our ditch, every year, we clean it off and the kids would skate on the ditch. And our ditch is, when they were little, it was perfect because the ditch would be no more than my table here, whatever that is, 3 feet wide, 4 feet wide. But it'd be the length of our property. It'd be almost an acre long or half an acre long. And so that's what they would skate on when they were young. And then, I'd say probably 4, 5, 6 years I did the old school way too. I tried it without the plastic or the tarp down, and walk out there with plywood packed down the snow, and forget that. That just turned into a nightmare because the moment you got to thaw, the whole thing shot. So I went the plastic route. So
when my kids were real tiny, 2-3 years old, we lived in a development where all the houses went around a pond, and it was a good sized pond. And one of the neighbors would plow. He had a plow on his 4-wheeler. He would plow almost a full size rink before he would plow his driveway, and then he'd get his ice auger. And he worked on the fire department, so he'd throw a pump down into the pond with the fire hose and missed it. It always had great ice out there, and we had a few construction lights, and it was always fun when you get that quick freeze and the fish are still swimming below. And my kids are, my son was 2, and he's just face down watching the fish.
That's fantastic. Wow.
But that's where they learned to skate when we lived in that old house, and that was fun. And I didn't have to do any of the upkeep, which was even better.
That's even better. Yes.
Yeah. So when you're not playing hockey, when you're not keeping up the backyard rink, is you've heard in previous episodes, I like to find out what else fuels you and keeps you grounded away from hockey. So, what are your other passions outside of hockey? I mean, obviously the kids.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are my family, my wife and kids are number one. I always make sure they're my priority. I try not to let work or anything get in the way of family. But when things quiet down and it's a quieter home at night, I'm usually looking for something to design. I really am. I'm on my laptop a lot. I draw a lot. I'm also on Kijiji a lot. I love to hunt for rusty gold, and it's not always goalie equipment. Since I was a kid, again, really small, I used to love collecting bottle caps because I loved the old advertising. So bottle caps. I even collected, as strange as it sounds, old rusty padlocks because they were just interesting. And I would take apart old clocks, like anything that was rusty or had gears or colors and advertising and graphics, whatever. I loved it. I would collect it, and my dad was into that stuff too. I'd go to the dump regularly with him in the junkyards. I couldn't wait to get into the truck and go with him, and he would just let me go off, and I would sort of grab things and bring them home. And so I'm always sort of picking. I have no shame, even garbage night, the odd night, I'll take a drive around, and man, you should see the things people throw out. I got a, the old school paper. I mean, they still make them, but the paper dispenser, you put a buck in and you get a newspaper out of it. I found an old one. It's in the garage, and my wife's like, "What are you going to do with that?" I said, "I don't know, but I can't throw it away. Look at it.
It's cool.
Who has one of these things?" So anyway, I love old things, and I love junk. I love rusty gold, and I'm always looking. I'm always picking. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I want to be mindful of time.
Sure.
So one of the things I like to do to end each episode is a list of rapid fire questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
In this first one, you may not have an answer for because you didn't play much organized hockey as a kid, but you've been to enough games. You still might have one. What's the craziest coaching moment you've seen in person?
Craziest coaching moment. That's a tough one. I can't think of one. I mean, I've played organized with refs. Yeah. But coaches, no, I don't think I have one for that. Sorry, man.
That's all right. Give it time. As the kids get older and get into organized sports themselves, you might see one. What's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Favorite all-time goalie mask?
Yeah. It could be the design. Man. It could just be the helmet itself, too.
Yeah, that's tough. So I love designs. I really do. Yeah. But I am a fan of the all-white mask. I really am. And so I would say my favorite mask today is still Greg Harrison's Mike Liu. That's probably still my all-time favorite. And Michel Dion with the long beak. I'm a big fan of that one too. Yeah.
Now, knowing that you like the all-white mask, you had to have really liked Luongo's later mask there in Florida, where it was kind of the white on white.
Did I ever? I'm all about simplicity. Yep. I know some people like the busy. That's just not my preference. But yeah, I loved it when he came up with that. And I think Jake Allen did that a few years ago in St. Louis. He had a kind of a cream color, and then he had the blue note, sort of a tone on tone. Yeah. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I grew up a Blackhawks fan in Chicago, so I don't like any of the St. Louis masks. I just can't. It's
I
by,
understand that. I understand
some
that
of
quite
them have
well.
been great designs, but I
Yeah,
just can't like the mask.
yeah, I get that. I get it.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm still going to ask it. What's your favorite rink you've played at?
The Hamilton Arena, now called the Dave Vanderchuck Arena, but that would be
Okay.
my favorite one for sure. Still there today.
I thought it was going to be your backyard rink.
Oh, that's a close second. But I was in Hamilton this past summer to see my family, and I took a drive out to see the Mountain Arena. And man, the nostalgia, the feelings it brought back as a kid. Yeah, that's
Yep.
still my favorite place.
That's awesome. What's your favorite stick you've used?
Favorite stick?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I am a bit biased because when I was at iTech, I used their sticks a lot. I used Bauer's a lot, but you know which one I really like, and I've been using it for the past couple of years. It's by Paso Hockey,
Okay.
and I've been using their foam core, and I love the foam core
So
personally.
do I.
They're
I
great.
love them.
Oh,
You know, the composites are light. I'll give them that. The early ones I didn't like because they broke too easy.
yeah, yeah,
They've done a lot with the durability, but there's just something about the feel of that foam core.
yeah.
Maybe it's because we grew up with wooden sticks.
That could be. Yeah,
You know,
that could
where
be.
I just feel like the feel of the puck on the foam core is just
Yeah,
more natural to me.
yeah. Do you like to play the puck?
I like to, but I'm not good at it, so I don't.
Well, you're humble. Yeah,
Yeah.
that for me is an art, and that's something we don't see much in the game anymore. But I love to play it, and I love to see goalies play the puck.
Yep. Well, and you know, I grew up in a time where, you know, for a goalie to play the puck, we had our glove down at the midsection.
Of
And,
course, of
you know,
course.
some guys like John Casey actually turned it over, so his glove was
Yes.
at the top. But
Yeah.
that I think if I grew up with the Turco curve, I'd be much better at it.
Yeah.
I use it now, and I'm better, but I just don't have the confidence.
Yeah. Turco was a master.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to skip the next one because it's your favorite youth hockey memory. You know, well, I suppose I can ask because you played road hockey and everything like that, so there
Yeah.
might be one from there.
Actually, you know what? I would say my favorite memory as a kid would it. Oh man, I would still say as a young boy in the basement of my buddy's house watching the old Oilers games and watching Grant Fuhr in his prime and
Mm-hmm.
Gretzky, you know, and Messier and Ranford and I mean McTavish, Curry, the list goes on. Those memories in his basement watching those games, that was special.
You know, you mentioned Fuhr in his prime. One of my all-time joys as a fan is I got tickets from a friend, 8 rows behind the visiting goaltender at the United Center in Chicago, and Fuhr was playing for St. Louis at the time. And
Wow.
he was the goalie, and it was just I went with my dad, and I just sat there watching him. The play would be
Yeah.
at the other end, and I'm
Oh,
sitting there, I'm watching his feet and his skates, and I'm watching what he, you know, what's he paying attention to in the pucks at the other end.
yeah.
And then the next game, I got the same tickets for the very next home game, and it was Patrick Waugh.
Oh,
I was
come
like,
on.
what a great week,
Wow.
you know, and the only reason I got them from my friend is her dad had gotten them from work, and they didn't know any hockey fans, and so they're like, "Here you go." You know, I'm not going
Score.
to use them. It's like nice.
Isn't that funny when you go to games, eh? Like it sounds like you're the same. You end up watching the goal. Like I
Yeah.
very rarely will I watch the play. I'm mesmerized, and I am just watching to see what the goalie's going to do.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of times when I go to games, I like to sit up in the 300 level
Sure. Yeah.
because as a player and playing at the level I did, I understand systems.
Yeah.
And I like to watch the game to see the systems going on from the high level versus down at the down ice level is great, but when you're up high, you see the systems, you can identify them. And
Yes.
my dad never
Absolutely.
played, and you know we'll go to games and he'll, you know, what are you seeing? Well, they're running an umbrella. What do you mean? And I'll explain
Right.
it to him, and it's to me that's just fun.
That's
Um,
cool.
so this is one that's been fun to ask folks: is what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice or off the ice? Sometimes it's
Oh
in the
man.
locker room too.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the best and the worst one I got, and I'm trying to think of the player's name now, and it's escaping me. My memory these days has just been brutal. But I played in a a charity tournament a couple of years ago, and whoever raised the most funds got to play in the alumni game. So it was a blitz of a series of games you'd play. So we played a ton. We played all day. It was like a Friday night. We played 2 or 3 games starting like in the afternoon, and then it went right into Saturday morning, and we played and we won. We actually won the whole thing. It was awesome. It was like winning the cup. I mean, you've been there, right? When you win a tournament, it's a big deal. And so anyways, I raised the most funds as well, or I was up, with a number of other guys who raised the most. So I got to play net and play in the alumni game, and it was alumni Sens against alumni Leafs, and I'm out there and I'm dog tired, right? This is a day and a half of just, I don't know how much weight I lost, but I was just dog tired. And I get out there, there's Wendell Clark, there's Laurie Boschman, Pascal Leclerc. He used to be a goalie for the Sens, but he's playing out. So there's all these guys that I reckon super nervous. Anyway, to make a long story short, it's Jim Kite. Is that his name? Jim Kite. He played for the Jets, I believe.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Jim Kite. Anyway, yeah, that's his name. Anyways, he's playing in front of me. He's my defenseman. And I was terrible. So I was on the alumni Sens and against the alumni Leafs, and they are lighting me up because I'm just done. And their passing was just bang on. And Jim Kite comes up to me, and he comes right up to my mask, and he gives me this serious look. He's like, "Are you okay? Is everything going all right?" And he's serious. And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing all right. I'm doing terrible." But I was so intimidated because I think he was kind of saying, "Listen, man, you got to step up your game here. We got to try to win this." Well, wouldn't you know, I think it was like the next shift. Wendell's on a 2-on. No, it was a 2-on-0. 2-on-0. And of course, I'm coming out, cut down my angle, play the shooter. Well, so they're doing this back and forth. And I got nothing left. Tank is empty. Well, I go down to stack the pads because I got nothing left. Well, he goes down, he goes around me, and he just makes me look like a complete fool. And I just felt ridiculous. And so I know the chirp was from Jim Kite. But he wasn't
great.
impressed. He wasn't happy with how I was playing.
What I love about most of the answers is none of them are vulgar or mean. They're just like these random, I'm not okay. Isn't it obvious?
Is everything okay? Like, pull up your socks, man. We got to try to win this. And anyways, it was a lot of fun. It was a great tournament.
Yeah. So what is the worst post-game beer you've had?
The worst what?
Post-game beer.
Post-game year?
Beer. Barley pop.
Yeah. Well, here's something crazy. This is maybe one you've never heard. So I quit drinking in the late 90s. So I used to have, it was early 2000s. I used to have a drinking problem.
Okay.
And I cut booze out of my life and
Good
smoking and a lot of other bad habits. So when I got into playing regularly, I had just gotten rid of that. And but I've been to a lot of games where the pop was in the room, but no, by that time I was done with that. So
well, good for you. Kudos. Yeah. That's not easy for a lot of guys, especially to be around it.
No, it was tough. I had my tough moments, but I'm glad I was able to get past that. So
good for you. When you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
When I tape my stick, I go from toe to heel.
What is there a reason?
No, it's when I got the stick upside down, it's the highest point. I start at the highest point and work my way down, I guess. I never really thought of it. Yeah.
There you go. That's the reason.
I guess. Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite number to wear?
I'm 31.
All right. Is there a reason for it, or you just like it?
I loved Fuhr.
Okay.
Also a huge Cujo fan. I loved Cujo. I still am a super big Cujo fan, and that number for me was just it probably started with Fuhr and Cujo, and never lost it. Yeah.
I never appreciated Cujo in his playing days because of where he started, being a Blue.
St. Louis, yes.
But I have great admiration for him after reading his book, and joking aside, when when I watched some of his games when he was in Edmonton, God, he had some great games.
Oh my
Back
goodness.
then. That one playoff series, that save where he dives across with the paddles, still etched in my mind.
Against Joe Newendike. Yeah,
Yes.
that was, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was on Curtis Joseph's birthday in April.
Yes, I believe.
If I'm not mistaken,
So.
it was the 17th or the whatever, somewhere in there.
Yes.
He was awesome. I got to see him, well, not a lot, but whenever the Battle of Ontario. So the Sens and the Leafs used to have some great rivalries back in the day, and I was fortunate to see him play a number of times, and just a tremendous athlete, so exciting to watch, and he's a great human being too. He's a wonderful person. Yeah.
So last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
What advice for young goaltenders? Well, I think, the game's changed a lot. You and I are probably close in age. The game has changed a lot in the past 20, 25, 30 years. And I would say as long as you are in that crease and having an absolute blast and just enjoying every time you get to make a save, and I'd say the biggest advice is don't be hard on yourself. I would say that. That'd be my biggest, because goalies are we can be hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critics, and you just got to shake it off and work hard. And but yeah, don't be hard on yourself. Just have fun.
That's awesome. So Matt, I want to thank you for your time. This has been awesome. As I said in some of the texts going back and forth, I have a feeling this is the first of multiple conversations.
Sure.
Where can folks find you online? And I will put those links in the show notes too.
Oh yeah, so I think Instagram is probably the one I'm most active on. If anyone wants to message me, they can message me through direct message on Instagram, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. And but no, thank you, Joe, for this. Really well done. Podcasts in the past few years have really grown, and I really enjoy them. And so good on you to do this, and thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Talking to Matt was like talking to an old teammate I hadn't seen in a while. I know he and I will be exchanging messages about our backyard ice rinks this winter. You can find Matt and his Vintage Goalie brand on Instagram at Vintage Goalie 14 and on Twitter at Vintage Goalie, all one word, no spaces. You can find him on Facebook by searching Vintage Goalie, and be sure to visit vintagegoalie.ca for some great Vintage Goalie branded merchandise too. I know that's where I got my hat and t-shirt from. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching Washed Up Goalie, and I'll pop up. Visit washedupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights, and all podcast episodes. I need to give a big thank you to the hockey band Newzambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music on iTunes and listen on Amazon Music or wherever else you stream your music from. I'm working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you're a goalie or have connections to a goalie, shoot me an email at washedupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you are a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.